We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It's time for another episode of Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of Regan's Newsround, where I cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets in the UK. The date and time of this recording is Thursday the 15th of August at around about 8 a.m. UK time. And we start with an exclusive from The Guardian saying that Labour have been urged to scrap the £4 billion Tory mega jails plan and fund rehabilitation. The exclusive reveals that the former Chief Inspector of Prisons, Nick Harwood, said the money would be better spent preventing crime. I'm inclined to agree with that premise. That is building more. Yes, I do believe that we do. I do believe the premise that we do need to build more prisons because of the situation that we are currently in. However, we also have a situation where we have a lot of our current prisons are just nowhere near up to scratch that they need to be. There's a lot of work that needs to be done for them. And we also need to, as it says there on the highlights, the front there, rehabilitation is a key thing that definitely needs to be done. Obviously, the new prisons minister, who is someone who is an expert in this area, obviously will have the best ideas. It's not always just about throwing money at these issues. It's about making every single pennies that they get already in their funding for their fundings count as well. So I do think that the rehabilitation, probation, those need to be taken in. Preventing crime, obviously we want people who end up going who are convicted and breaking the law, those who end up going to prison, coming out and not committing crimes again. No, we don't want them to be a burden for the taxpayer. We don't want them to be a burden for the burden for us. And I'm not talking about the high level ones, obviously those who are the most horrific of people. I'm talking about those of the low end of crimes, whether it's stealing, minor assaults. This is the minor things that cause them to be in prison. Those ones, we really want to make sure that they come out as a different person. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be rehabilitating every single prisoner, but the ones that are on the lighter scales, those ones, we really don't want them going through the system again. And it's really, really important that where money, it's not just a case of how much money that the Chancellor gives or that the government does decide to give to certain prisons and that. The question is how it's distributed and where that money exactly is gone, or if it's the case of that the government gives or the Chancellor gives a certain amount of money and they're told you have to spend it in specific areas, sort of thing. But I don't think they will do that premise. I think they will kind of let the prisons. I think they should let the prison service decide where that money should go. If I'm personally honest, I think that would be the best thing. But this is a situation that's rambling on. Obviously, there's been people in comment sections are saying that it's going to crash and burn the prison system and all this, and still waiting for it to crash and burn, as people would say. Yes, it is overcrowded, the prisons, but I'm still waiting for this crashing and burning that people are saying, those who vehemently hate Labour with all their might. So I'm still waiting for that to happen, you guys. So let's read what the Guardians had to say on this. So, ministers should scrap the Conservatives' plans to build new mega jails and pour $4 billion into prevention of crime and rehabilitation, instead, the former Chief Inspector of Prisons has said. So Nick Harwood, who is also a former head of the parole board, said a huge expansion of the prison system would not solve the problem, especially when the average custodial sentence are rising. Keir Starmer has inherited a crisis in the prison system when he took office and blamed the previous government for letting prisons operate at 99% capacity for 18 months with a net number of 100 prisoners added every week. He announced an expansion of the Tory scheme for releasing tens of thousands of inmates early to try and prevent jails becoming full. On top of the early release scheme, Labour suggested it will keep the Conservatives' plans to expand the prison systems by at least 14,000 places in England and Wales and up to 89,000 now, including 6 new prisons at the cost of £4 billion planned. Super prisons in Lancashire, Leicestershire and Buckinghamshire have been hit by delays. Pressure on prisons has only increased with riots across England this month, leading to more than 1,000 arrests. But in an interview with The Guardian, Harwick said hugely expanding the prison system was not the solution and the current size of the incarcerated population was unsustainable. The basic problem is that people are coming into the system faster than they are going out, and if you think of it like a bath, the bath is overflowing and the water is still coming in, he said. The strategy has been up until now, and what Labour is continuing to do is bail out the bath. And that will certainly buy them some time, but it doesn't solve the problem completely. The system is set to continue to increase. Labour have said they're going to spend billions, literally billions, on new prisons. If they bought themselves a bit of time, wouldn't it be better to reinvest that money in trying to stop people going to prisons in the first place? Working in schools, in health, and in mental health? Yeah. This putting the money into those kind of departments now will help. Maybe they should. I don't know how much money they're putting in. I don't know. I know they said they're putting 4 million, but maybe some of that money should go towards working in schools, health, and mental health instead. Maybe. You could ask people, do you want people to go to prisons for a few months longer at the cost of billions of pounds, or spend that money on hospitals and schools? Harwick said he thought the prisons was right for those involved in the riots at the speed of which was done. In contrast to how the system usually works, will it be a deterrent? We added, I think the system will cope until the end of August, providing there is no more crises. But in the long term, the current prison population is unsustainable without billions being spent. And even then, I don't think the new places can be delivered in time to deal with the sustained upward pressure in the population. Harwick was the Chief Inspector of Prisons from 2010 to 2016 and then the head of the Parole Board until 2018. He quit the Parole Board after judges overturned the release of the rapist John Woodboy, though Harwick played no role in the decision. Howard, who was Professor of Criminal Justice at Royal Holloway, the University of London, until last month, said the policy of building more big jails would simply mean prisoners spending a few extra months inside, which was unlikely to act as a deterrent to crime. I don't think it's a good way to spend money to build new prisons. We are spending billions on an untested model that we don't know works. We not run prisons of this size before. Even if the longer run they work, by the nature of these prisons, they will have new, inexperienced staff. So if you're going to have real problems in some of them, I think that if you want to replace some of the crumbling Victoria ruins, but I think they need to think very carefully about whether they want to invest at this level, given how short of money they are, and put that money somewhere else. The average custodial sentence has risen from 18 months in 2013 to 23 months in 2023, he said. The Justice Secretary, Shabina Mahmood, told the Telegraph in an interview before the election that Labour would build more prisons in prioritising them in the planning system. However, Labour's manifesto did not commit to a specific number of new prisons or the amount of prison places. Starmer's government has said solving the prison crisis is a priority, and appointing James Timpson, a businessman who employs former prisoners, to the role of Justice Minister. Timpson had previously said that he thinks prison does not work for many people and only a third of inmates should really be there. Prisons aren't always the answer to certain people breaking the law. Victims groups have raised concerns about plans to release some prisoners after 40% of their sentences, but Harwick said this would allow some suspects who are on bail to yet to be convinced of the sentence and off the streets sooner. Mistakes will be made, I'm sure about that, but because you're talking about a big number, and some people will be reoffended, he said, they will reoffend a bit sooner than they would otherwise have reoffended, but they will leave the system as there is no possibility of addressing their behaviour. Exactly. If there's not the rehabilitation, the rehabilitation really, really matters in all this for me. And we are in a position now where, because the prison system is full, you have people on bail accused of domestic violence who might be innocent, but they're guilty and we can't process them quickly enough to reduce their threat because of the problems in the system. You have victims waiting for years for the trial and to know what will happen, and they can't sort out the backlog unless they sort the prison population out. A Ministry of Justice spokesperson said the government has committed to addressing the crisis in our prisons and ensuring our jails make better citizens, not better criminals. That started with the emergency capacity measures introduced by the Lord Chancellor last month. And we will set out a 10-year strategy for prison supplies later this year. And we will also introduce a new focus on driving down reoffending, linking up with prison governors with local employers to break down the cycle of crime. I hope they can break the cycle of crime, because it is problematic at the moment. We know we have a broken justice system as well, in tune as well with this as well, because it has to work hand in hand. The system has to work hand in hand with the justice system, with a reliable police force, and then obviously with a prison system that's working along well with it. I do think like I said at the start, I do think we need to build more prisons. I'm not so sure about these mega prisons. I'm not so sure about them, if I'm honest, guys. But maybe some of you might agree with it. But my feeling is that while I understand we need to build more prisons because we're close to capacity, I think that has to be done given the situation that we are in. I do think we have to make sure that we are funding rehabilitation, funding paroles, making sure that those who are committing crimes are given the best rehabilitation possible, so that when they come out as a different person. And I really think that really does matter. Men or women, whatever the same crimes or new crimes when they leave prisons, and I think that's really, really important. We want to prevent and we want to stop crime, of course, but we also want to make sure they don't reoffend. Turning that reoffending down is a big factor into this. But obviously, I think it's also fair to say that crime has also been a factor because of what's been happening in the last 14 years, where people are much worse off than they used to be, thanks to this cost of living crisis that the Conservatives have manifested themselves with regard to austerity and other things as well. And I think that's really important to remind ourselves as well. But I will continue to obviously keep an eye on the prison system as time goes on, you guys. So moving up to Scotland, this is without a shadow of doubt going to be a frustrating story for my Scottish friends here. This one is from Sky News. So Scotland has axed the universal winter fuel payments for pensioners. The Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville announced the move on Wednesday and said ministers have been left with no choice due to cuts made by the UK government. So Scotland knew that the Scottish government knew that their hands were going to be in a difficult situation given the fundings, given that the reduction of funding that's coming from the UK government, and they have made a conscious decision, Scotland, to axe winter fuel payments for pensioners. This is very concerning. No doubt many people will be angry, but given that their funds are already, they're trying to keep as many things going as possible. And unfortunately, it's the elderly who are going to suffer as a result of this. I can assure you that the Scottish government did not want to do this, but this is the price they pay for consistently being tied to the British government. It's frustrating, and we know that obviously that here in England, obviously the Chancellor made cutbacks as well on certain things as well. So yeah, it's not good at all. Not good at all. So the Scottish Government has confirmed that it will no longer provide winter fuel payments to all pensioners. The once universal benefit will now be means tested and replicate a UK government decision. The introduction of a replacement Scottish benefit has also been delayed. It comes amid reports that the Finance Secretary Sheila Robertson has written to Cabinet colleagues and ordered them to freeze all unnecessary spending to help pay for public sector pay deals. The Social Justice Secretary Shirley Ann Somerville announced the move on Wednesday and said ministers have been left with no choice due to the cuts being made south of the border. In July, Chancellor Rachel Reeves revealed the payment worth between £100 and £300 would be means tested in England and Wales, where only those on benefits will qualify. It is expected to reduce the number of pensioners in receipt of the payment from 11.4 million to 1.5 million, saving the Treasury some at £1.4 billion this financial year. The payment is a devolved matter in Scotland and Northern Ireland. However, the UK government's approach is expected to cause up to £160 million in cuts to Scottish funding in 2024-2025. The Scottish government has intended to replace the winter fuel payment this year with its own pension age winter heating payment, the PAWHP. But that has now been delayed until 2025-2026, with Miss Somerville claiming the anticipated cuts amount to as much as 90% of its funding. The Scottish Government said initial analysis suggests the caseload in Scotland will decrease by around 900,000 in 2024-2025 based on the current pension credit uptake, and it will now support up to 130,000 people in receipt of pension credits and other means-tested benefits. Ms Summerfield said, despite all efforts to review our financial position, we've been left with no choice but to follow the UK's government and restrict payments to older people who receive relevant eligible benefits. This is a necessary decision when faced with such a deep cut to our funding, and it's the most challenging financial circumstances since devolution. Meanwhile, Government Expenditure and Revenue Scotland, the GERS, figures reveal the nation's public spending deficit increased from 18 billion in 2022-2023 to 22.68 billion in 2023-2024 due to the lower North Sea revenue. As a percentage, Scotland's GDP, the deficit has increased from 8.4% to 10.4% compared to UK's deficit, which fell from 5% to 4.5% in the same period. Total revenue in Scotland from £86 billion to £88.5 billion. Government expenditure in person in Scotland is £2,417 higher than the rest of the UK, with £20,418 spent on average for every single person north of the border. The Finance Secretary, Miss Robinson, claimed the deficit is not a reflection of the finances or politics of the Scottish Government, that it is a reflection of the UK Government's choices. She said the Scottish Government will make sure public services do not crumble away, adding, our priority is clear in making sure that we sustain public services, and that we continue to tackle poverty, and that we continue to invest in net zero and transforming our economy, but those are our key priorities. We will have to decide what we deprioritise, and that work is ongoing. Ms Robertson also raised the possibility of a reduction in the public sector workforce and said there is absolutely going to be restraint on recruitment. The MSP for Dundee East City East cited her letter to Cabinet colleagues saying that only recruitment in critical areas like Blue Light Service will be allowed to move forward. The Scottish Government will work with the public sector, and she said to pinpoint that voluntary options are available in light of the policy of not allowing compulsory redundancies. The UK Government has been contacted for comment, and there's a good chance they probably would have responded at the time of this as well. But yeah, unfortunately, due to decisions being made down south, this is the situation, unfortunately, that some Scottish pensioners are going to be in. I'm sure that they will do everything they can to help people, but at the same time as well, when they are being hamstrung as well by what's happening in Westminster, it is extremely frustrating to say the least. I will also highlight, if you haven't seen, I do recommend checking out the YouTube channel of the Two Davies. They are much more up to date on Scottish news than I am, so I do recommend checking out their YouTube channel, youtube.com/the Two Davies. They will always give you guys the best info on what's happening when it comes to Scottish news, Scottish politics in particular. So they will have more on this than I will, but I wanted to highlight that for those who weren't aware. So moving on, guys, to the BBC here. This is an interesting one here. I'm gonna just dive straight into this one before I give my initial thoughts. So the headline is Jess Phillips admits a mistake over an unrest tweet. Well, what's this all about? So the Home Office Minister, Jess Phillips, said she made a mistake in her response to a video showing masked men confronting a reporter last week. So the footage showed a Sky News broadcaster in her Birmingham Yardley constituency cut short after many masks surrounded a journalist. Responding to the clip on social media at the time, Ms Phillips said the gathering had been due to misinformation spread in the area, and her comments had been criticised by political opponents, including Tory leadership candidate Tom Tugendhat and James Cleverly. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, Ms Phillips admitted she would choose my words more carefully in the future. So for those who didn't see the clip as the build up to the riots last week or 2 weeks ago, there was a Sky News broadcast team. They got surrounded by masked journalists, and and they continued to keep broadcasting. I'm going to be honest; they should not have been in the area when those the Yobs were around, because I'm not saying they would have assaulted them on live television, but I don't know. But I don't think it was a good idea for them. But sometimes the best response to say is nothing at all. And Miss Phillips, I agree. They gathered due to be misinformation spread in the area. But they said it was going to be a protest, and obviously most of these so-called people, they didn't come to protest. The majority of them came to cause violence. Came to cause trouble, came to start shit up, which didn't help anyone or anything. Speaking, she should be more careful of her words, but she added that she was trying to get across that this gathering of people had been manufactured by misinformation. A clip of the broadcast shared by Reform UK's Deputy Leader Richard Tice showed a group of men gathering at the Broadstreet Green area of Birmingham last week. The police said a large number of people gathered in the area on Monday amid reports of a far-right march that did not take place. According to some social media posts, a crowd of mainly young Asian men was nearing 300 in number. The clip shared by Mr. Tice showed a man on a motorbike driving up to the Sky Report before swearing about the English Defence League and shouting "Free Palestine." Other masked men then surrounded the reporter before making gestures to the camera, prompting Sky to bring the broadcast to an end. Sharing the video on X, Mr. Tice said, "Starmer and Labour no doubt think these pro-Gaza masks folds are far right too. All violence and rioting and assaults is totally unacceptable. Two-tier policing must stop." In response, Ms. Phillips replied, "These people came to this location because it has been spread that racists were coming to attack them. The misinformation was spread entirely to create this contest. Don't spread it, Mr. Tice." So these masked men regardless is unacceptable, and swearing and shouting in the camera, that's not helping the situation. It's not going to help what's happening in Palestine in any way, shape or form as well. They're not helping the situation with those antics in any way. Didn't help at all. And I think Miss Phillips trying to get into a tit for tat with Mr. Tice on Twitter is probably not a good idea either. She probably should. Sometimes the best thing to say nothing at all, guys. Asked whether she regretted her response in the video on Wednesday, Miss Phillips told reporters, "I think I almost certainly could have phrased it better." She added that intelligence that would have been spread among the community that people were coming to harm them had caused upset and fear. Anybody, regardless of who they are, whatever flag they wish to wave, anyone being a thug on our street should not be tolerated. Of course, I would choose my words more carefully. I'm more than happy to say that when I make the mistake, absolutely. Ms. Phillips' comments have been criticised by the Shadow Home Secretary and Tory leadership hopeful James Cleverly. He wrote on their Home Office ministers should not be making excuses for masked men shouting, abusing and intimidating members of the media. Ministers are not commentators or casual observers. They're decision makers, and they need to think about the consequences of their words and actions. She didn't do anything to entice or defend their actions in what she said. So James Cleverly is misconstriving what was actually said. On Tuesday, the Shadow Security Minister Tom Tugendhat said Mr. Phillips had chosen to justify the men's behaviour instead of condemning it, adding that Keir Starmer should have sacked her for the comments. No, that's just stupid. Ms. Phillips, who has represented Birmingham's Yardley since 2015, has one of the biggest followings on X among Labour MPs. She resigned as Shadow Minister to call for a ceasefire in Gaza during the vote in Parliament last November, but she returned to the Labour front bench after the party's landslide election victory last month, where she was appointed Safeguarding and Violence Against Women and Girls Minister at the Home Office. Sacking her for the comments? No, I don't think they warrant sacking at all. I think it's and for those who are saying, "Oh, you're being generous to Labour or whatnot," no, then what they are doing is nowhere near the rhetoric, the tone, the level that you are hearing from Labour ministers and government is nothing in comparison to what the Conservatives have been doing. Nothing in comparison. It's not. It really, really is not. There is nothing there that I've read from Jess Phillips that maybe, in hindsight, she could have tweeted better. She could have not said anything at all. But did she, in my opinion, cross any lines? No, I don't think she crossed any lines. I don't think so. Did she incite a violence? No, she didn't incite violence like Nigel Farage or certain people online. She's not incited anything. So I think that's a really important context to add there. So guys, before I go to the next article, if you haven't already, please hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. All these things make a big difference to supporting me here on the channel. And if you obviously can't financially support me, these are the best way to do so. Watching my videos a bit longer, leaving comments in them, all these things make a massive difference. So thank you to anyone who has done so. It's greatly appreciated. Also, if you want to leave any super chats as well, you're more than welcome to do so. It is greatly appreciated, and thank you if you have. So the next one I've got for you guys is an exclusive from iNews here. So 11 kitchen stone workers now have deadly lung disease as the UK cases rise. So a leading health official believes that the UK should bring in a phased ban on engineered stone due to a rise in silicosis among young workers. This is quite this is very concerning. Anyone who gets any kind of diseases like this, obviously, my heart goes out to them. And obviously, when cases of any kind of disease is on the rise, it needs to be tackled and it needs to be dealt with. And whatever health and safety and safeguards aren't in place need to be put in place, and there needs to be action plans and to put in place so that people are protected from them. It's pretty devastating situation for any of ones to having 11 kitchen stone to have deadly lung disease, especially like not being able to breathe properly and whatnot. It's just a horrible feeling for them. So let's read more into this exclusive, guys. So the number of stonemasons who have contracted silicosis linked to a popular kitchen countertop material in the UK is rising, with 11 cases now recorded among engineered stone workers. Leading health officials believe the UK should bring in a phased ban on the material, as it has been banned on the for a rise in the deadly lung disease among young workers. That is incredibly scary if it's certain material that is silicosis, which is linked to a popular kitchen countertop. If people are not wearing masks or having something to cover their mouths, at least they should be doing so. I'm assuming most workers should do. If they're not, they need to do that. But the fact that it's linking themselves to lung disease, that's incredibly worrying. In a report, experts have added that growing calls for the government to follow Australia and outlaw engineered stone, primarily quartz, due to the risk of silicosis detected in stone masons. Quartz kitchen surfaces have become a staple among homeowners in recent years, but their popularity has been linked to outbreaks of severe forms of silicosis in workers cutting the material without adequate safety controls across the world. In July, Australia became the first nation to ban engineered stone after hundreds of stonemasons, many in their 30s or 40s, despite their crippling disease, will require some lung transplants and dying. Last week's doctors treated the first 8 cases in the UK, mostly migrant workers from the average of 34, one of whom has died, said urgent action was required to prevent an endemic seen in other countries. And considering we are in a situation right now, guys, where, I don't know, like we want to be building lots of homes, we're going to need a lot of builders and workers. Do we really want, because we really are in a situation where we need more homes right now? This could be problematic, especially considering how many homes that this Labour government wants to build, and we need new homes as well. And it's going to be requiring kitchens, and they're going to be requiring countertops. So it's not too hard to see what could potentially really happen here. But a new report has now confirmed 11 UK cases of silicosis in... Oh, by the way, if I mispronounce the name, I do apologise, guys. In engineering, stone workers have been flagged by the surveillance of work-related and the occupational respiratory disease SORD, a report scheme for physicians. The government has so far refused to ban the kitchen stone, claiming that the Health and Safety Executive has not deemed it necessary. Authors of the report have added that their voices to medics urging the government to reconsider a ban. The UK and European countries should use existing regulations to ban engineered stone. According to the editorial authors, including Professor John Cherry, an emeritus professor at Human Health Herrick Walk University, who sits on the Industrial Injuries Advisory Council, the IIAC. It says, evidence suggests that there is a global epidemic of a disease that is not been known for centuries, but yet again surfaced in a dramatic way, partly due to the introduction of these new materials, leading to premature deaths, often in vulnerable workforces, the authors have said. We support the idea of regulators in Europe and elsewhere introducing a phase ban on artificial stone containing a high proportion of crystallite silicalia. In July, the eye spoke to Malik Al-Khaliya, 31, a Syrian refugee who is being treated at the Royal Brompton Hospital for St. Collis, in which he contracted after 5 years in engineering stone workshop in London. The man-made quartz is typically much higher in lung-shredding dust known as respirable Crencilius singular RCS compared to natural stone such as granite or marble. Inhaling these shards of insilia increases the risk of syncolis, an irreversible lung disease that has historically hit miners or construction workers. Doctors say engineered stone syncolis is associated with shorter duration of exposure, more rapid disease progression and higher mortality than syngelos in working cutting natural stone. The risk to workers cutting the stone rather than homeowners having the countertops instead. The new editorial published the Occupational and Environmental Medicine Journal suggested an initial ban on products with more than 30% of syncolia, followed by a ban of more than 5% after 5 years. It also rejects arguments that the risk can be managed by safety measures such as wet cutting to dampen dust and ventilation extraction to remove silica dust. We disagree mainly because of the nature of the hazard presented by these materials and the difficulty in ensuring all employers and workers understand the risk and abide by the necessary controlled measures, the authors said. So it's a bit of an image thing from the source from the NHS. So what is syncolis? The main symptoms are persistent cough, persistent shortness of breath, weakness and tiredness. Could also increase the risk of tuberculosis, lung cancer, heart failure, arthritis and kidney disease. The most common among people who work in it is stone masonry and stone cutting, workshop manufacturing and fitting, mining and quarrying, construction and demolition is where those likely are among those to catch this. One of them, Professor Marina van Tongerman, an occupational environmental health expert and principal investigator at SWORD, a voluntary database at the University of Manchester, and around 350 doctors to log respiratory illness, said he now favours a ban after initially being unsure. He said, "What really changed my view was a colleague of mine," he said. "While it's not really an essential product, this is a vanity project. It is so important for people to have this kind of material in the home if we can't guarantee it's produced safely. Although the big companies will say they will do everything to reduce the risks, there will be many others who will not be able to reduce the risks. Hence, I think it's very difficult to control this. Nobody will suffer if this product will be discontinued." I don't think anyone will suffer if they discontinue the product. Like, if there's other safer stone materials, then why not? Like, it's not worth the risk. It's not worth putting workers' lives at risk. Like, just stick to granite and just stick to the same materials that we've always been using that are safer. Like, it's just not, like, why change? Is it? I'm going to assume that it's because of money, which is why they pick a different stone. I'm going to assume, but as he says, if the product's discontinued, people are still going to be able to produce kitchen countertops and whatnot. So, is it really going to harm anyone by banning it? Among those who believe a ban is not needed are the British Occupational Hygiene Society, a leading scientific body which this year issued urgent safe guidance for engineering stone workers. Rather than advocating a ban, the BOHS said it wants to raise awareness among workers and help businesses manage the risk. But Professor Tongerden said that he wanted to challenge the view that a ban would not work. Taking a material that has demonstratively caused big problems in other countries and is very likely to cause serious health issues in this country, then a serious discussion about the ban is required, he said. "I'm not an expert on what mechanisms can be achieved, but if you can ban smoking in pubs as long as there's political will, then things can happen." The HSC said there was a robust and well-established regulatory framework to protect workers from health risk associated with exposure to hazardous substances. Spokesperson added, "We continue to work with the industry to raise awareness of the managing and the risk of exposure to respirable crystallized silica, and we are considering options for future investment to ensure workers are protected." And I hope they are looking at making sure that those workers are protected, because that is a very serious concern indeed. It's a major it's a major concern if it provides those risks. Like for me, it's always about minimizing the risk, but if you can outright avoid the risk outright, then why not ban it? Why not ban it outright and just don't? It's just not worth the risk then. I just think that if they're keeping it out of Dean's. I just think money is playing a factor into the decision making of it. But that's how it comes across to me. But I don't work in the construction area. I don't work in the industry. So maybe some people in the comment section can give me a bit of a crash course on that to better teach and understand me. So guys, we're going to take a little break here. We're about just more than halfway through Regan's Newsround here. We've got 3 more articles to cover here. But so I've got a funny video, guys, to kind of break things up here. I'm not going to play the full video because it's too long. But I wanted to play this one because I've not heard this in full before. But this is just a clip of... This clip is basically part of a longer version of the video. But I'll put a link to the full version in the description if you guys want to check it out. The video is called Getting Past Every Country's Immigration from Foil and Arms. So it's showing every single country that they have done, from Australia to France, Ireland, Canada, Switzerland, Spain. But the one I don't ever remember hearing is the one they did on the UK. Now it's a short one. It's a very, very old one, but I hope you guys enjoy this little bit here.
Before granting you citizenship to the United Kingdom, you must first pass this British citizenship test. Question 1. The Premier League is the showcase of which English popular sport?
Diving.
Correct. What is Britain's most popular pastime?
Queuing.
Name the area with the highest British population density.
Tenerife.
What is the current sterling conversion rate?
About 1 goal in every 10 games.
England won the World Cup in 1966, beating West Germany.
Was that a question?
No, I just wanted to remind you. What is Scotland's national dish?
Deep fried Mars bar.
When was the War of the Roses?
Last Christmas, when Cadbury's reduced the size of the tin.
International relations with Jordan were at an all-time low when?
When she split with Peter Andre?
Name the 2 great Manchester rivals.
Liam and Noel.
Pronounce this Welsh word.
Kath Ein
Zeta
Jones.
Correct. Which tunnel separates Britain from mainland Europe?
Tunnel vision.
What noise do politicians in the House of Commons make? Correct. What did England win in 1966, beating West Germany?
The
World Cup.
Correct. We beat them 4-2. Which British mail was responsible for misleading the public over Brexit?
The Daily Mail.
And the last question. How would I get myself an Irish passport?
What?
Doomda.
After all that, it's just like, so guys, because you're Irish, how do I get an Irish passport? That was a good one. That's a good one. Honestly, I don't remember that one. I don't remember them doing the Britain one. They do have an American one as well. I might share that American one in the future at some point as well. But yeah, that's a good one there. Yeah. So how do I get an Irish passport? That's it, guys. That's all we want to know. Guys, just a reminder, if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member. There is 2 levels to being a YouTube member, either 99p or 2.99. Just being a 99p member, even though it may not sound like a lot, it really does make a massive difference and supports the work that I do. This is my only source of income as of right now. You get access to custom emojis. You also get access to membership community posts as well. Whenever you comment on any of my videos, you always get a response from me as well. And obviously, if you're here in the live chats, whether it's premiere videos and live or live streams, whenever I'm present, obviously I'll greet you. I greet everybody anyway, but those who are members are very special to me because they are because you're investing your hard-earned money towards me, and I want to say thank you to anyone who does do so. It really does mean the world to me. If you are a $2.99 member, you get early access to additional content on top of all the perks that you get by being a YouTube member. So whenever I produce content, you guys get first hand of it before anyone else does as well. So thank you to everyone who is a YouTube member. It's greatly appreciated. obviously, if you cannot financially support me, the best way to do so, which is totally understandable, if especially if people are struggling, the best way to do so is hitting the like button, sharing across social media, watching my videos a bit longer than usual, leaving comments, all that kind of stuff really does make a massive difference, guys. But if you want to other ways of financially support me, you can buy me a coffee. Link is in the description, or you can join Patreon as well. Links for both of those are down in the description if you guys want to join them as well. So the next one article I got for you guys is from The Independent here. So the headline is a backlash over thousands of A-level students at the concrete crisis schools denied extra help. So the Labour MP Mary Fox says the decision not to provide extra consideration for affected pupils is absolutely devastating. So as of right now, here's the thing. I don't know if the Chancellor is going to introduce anything at the budget for this. So we've covered on this channel, for those who weren't aware, the RAAC, autoclad concrete, a material that is basically crumbling, and basically it's not just obviously been in schools, it's also been found to be in certain hospitals as well, and this material is in desperate need of being replaced basically within these buildings, because they are not, because some of the school buildings that are still having these, which means that the buildings are not deemed safe for kids to be doing their exams in, so it makes it so basically it's been a headache for schools. And it has been a headache for quite a long time now, because the Conservatives have been well aware about this, and their response is nothing, or to tell schools and to pull it out of their own funding to pay for it, basically. And initially here, so it looks like here that Labour's response is basically, you guys are going to have to sort out yourselves. That's what it looks like here, which is incredibly bad if that is the case. Now, it's not to say that the Chancellor might introduce some money towards fixing this in the budget. It's possible. We don't know. We don't know if that's going to be something that might be introduced in her budget. We will have to wait and see. But because obviously they want to be physically responsible with their money, Labour, they've always said that. So while I'm upset that Labour are not promising any extra money, doesn't mean to say that they won't offer some down the road as well. So again, I will say let's wait and see what they say at the budget, or what the Chancellor will introduce. And if there's not going to be anything offered then we will know for sure where Labour stand on this. And rightfully so, then we can absolutely throw the book at them, because this is a situation that needs to be affected. Not just this as well, but NHS hospitals that still have this material as well. So exam bosses are facing a growing backlash over their refusal to boost the grades of A-level students affected by the crumbling concrete. So thousands were hit as dozens of schools across the country were forced to close entirely or shut off classrooms following the discovery of dangerous material last year. The head of Ofqual has resisted calls to raise their results, suggesting it would be unfair to pupils who suffer from other problems such as teacher shortage, but politicians from across the political spectrum have called for a rethink just days before A-level results are revealed on Thursday. So by the time you guys see this, probably the results would have been out for some of them. A Liberal Democratic education spokesperson, Marina Wilson, said it was shocking that some children spent months being taught in porta bins and makeshift facilities throughout this crucial time in their education, adding that the new Labour government must now ensure pupils and parents impacted by these years of chaos are given the support they need. Labour MP Mary Fox told The Independent that the decision not to provide extra consideration for affecting pupils was absolutely devastating, but said it was perverse that a student would get special considerations for a fire alarm sounding during an exam, but none for having no access to the correct facilities or even the previous work for almost a full academic year. Meanwhile, Robert Halfton, a former Conservative education minister, told The Independent he was sympathetic to calls for more help for affected pupils, but added that it would have to be done on a school-by-school basis depending on the level of disruption. I do think that's a good point there on a case-by-case basis. It depends how much disruption, how big or small that each school has had due to it. I do agree with Robert there that should be playing a factor in it, because obviously you don't want to give too much money to one school when that money could go to another school that's really deeply affected. So I do think that could play a fact. That's definitely a very valid point from him. Around 7,600 A-level students, as well as 19,700 GCSE pupils, are in schools where buildings containing the crumbling concrete, according to the House of Commons Library Research commissioned by the Lib Dems. The School Leaders Union, the NAHT, also called for formal acknowledgement of the impact of RIAC on exam results and performative indicators for pupils. Schools facing issues with crumbling concrete have to deal with sudden closures, relocations and disruptions to learning, including children being taught in porta bins. Yeah, this is just absolutely devastating. Yeah, this porta bins thing is absolutely devastating. Apologies for that. Don't know if you noticed it, it's quite hot, guys. But yeah, I just like being taught in these situations is just absolutely ridiculous. Mrs. Foy said that St. Leonard's School, a school in the city of Durham constituency, pupils lost access to most of their school, explaining that specialist classrooms were closed overnight. Pupils were being busted to sites around the region where they were working in huge classrooms, often with little more than a clipboard in the way of equipment. She added, "I'll be urging the Labour government to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again, but let's be clear. When St. Leonard's pupils receive their results next week, their success will be down to the sheer determination of school staff and pupils facing in the face of huge challenges and apparent lack of support." The Lib Dems said A-level students whose education was disrupted by crumbling concrete should be able to appeal for higher grades. Sir Ian Buckman, the regular chief for Ofqual, said it would be difficult to allow one-off a boost to pupils' results in schools affected by the crumbling concrete RAC. He said that if a suspension was allowed for these schools, then other adjustments for things like teacher shortages might have been made at other schools. He said schools should be able to apply exam boards under the existing special consideration process, where marks can be adjusted to taking into account unforeseen circumstances. If pupils had to sit their exams in conditions where were less favourable than normal as a result of the crisis, no consideration will be given to students who face disruption in the lead up to the exams. But he said he would be surprised if the RAC disruption faced by schools in England affect the overall exam results this summer. I do think it will. I do think it will disrupt some. To say it won't disrupt them, I think is folly. I do think it will disrupt them. Paul Whiteman, General Secretary of the School Leaders Union, the NAHC, highlighted the disruptive impact of RAC on teaching and learning in effective schools, including a lack of access to specialist facilities such as science labs. While the union acknowledged that the special consideration process is an opportunity for students to receive some reconciliation of the disruption they experienced at the time when they took an exam, Ms. Whiteman told The Independent that NAHT would still like to see schools affected given a formal acknowledgement of the potential impact of RAC on the measures that they are held accountable, for example, attendance and qualification outcomes. I can understand Labour's position of not wanting to give them higher grades because you can open the door for other issues. I can totally understand that point of view, but at the same time I can also understand why students and parents would say it's not fair on the children that they have had to have this disruption. This is not their fault. This is no fault of their own, and that is a point that is valid. That's an extremely valid point here. As you know, Labour really should. I really hope that Labour get to grips on this between now and next year. Man, kids, especially here in England, have really been hampered, really been held back by some from the policies and decision makers over the last 14 years. And the RAC thing is just another thing to add on top of all the setbacks that some of these kids have had, guys. And it's really sad to say the least, guys. It really, really is. Very frustrating as well. So the next article I've got for you guys is from Open Democracy. It's more of an opinion-based one, but I wanted to share it anyway. It's a short one here. So meet the migrants absent from the debate on the fascist riots. After racist violence gripped England and Northern Ireland, migrants are shaken and remain on a high alert. So This article is obviously a few days old. I do think that it's kind of been dumbed down now because obviously people have been caught, people have faced jail time, people have been shown that that if they go out and do this, they will face the wrath of the law. So those who were instigating it and whatnot have just gone silent. They've gone under the rocks. They've gone into hiding their corners because they know that they will be chased down now by the law. They thought that they wouldn't face any punishment, and now they know that they will face punishment. But those who are still thinking they got away with it, just remember, the clock. Just because they ain't at your door today doesn't mean they won't be at your door tomorrow. So let's read into this, you guys. So, the past weeks for migrants, people of colour, and Muslims across England and Northern Ireland have felt like a living nightmare, as far-right racist assaults and threaten radicalised people, and including with acid attacks, burning their cars, damaging mosques, smashing homes and migrant accommodation, and leaving the high streets in total disarray. Despite a flurry of statements and condemnation from migration charities, this is not enough, with migrant voices and themselves having been largely missing from the public conversation. I work at a charity, Migrant Rights Network, which works with organisations across the UK to enable migrants to speak truth to power on immigration and issues affecting their lives. And that's why we decided to ask migrants, including refugees in our communities, for their thoughts on the attack and how they fared over the past few weeks. One of the many common threads, I can't believe my phone made that noise. One of the many common threads that came through was that although this weekend did not see large-scale riots again, and anti-racist demonstrators came out in force in London and Birmingham, among other places, many migrants have retreated indoors, too scared to go outside in case of attack. Many have boarded up their local shops, while high streets in areas in high proportion have been quieter than usual. But I never thought I would be in lockdown again, but this time for being black, said Lorraine, a refugee from Malawi and migrant right campaigner. We are being hunted like animals. Another clear thread was a clear frustration from migrants on the lack of migrant representation in media coverage. Javier Linguindis from Spain explained how the voices of migrants with their individual journeys and experiences are shut down. The mainstream narrative has failed to address the many decades of political and media discourse which have vilified the human rights of migration. Angelo, a journalist from Italy and member of Black Europeans, also voiced his frustration at the media portrayal of the violence. Talking about far-right thuggery means losing sight of the bigger picture, and what we are witnessing is racist and Islamophobic terror, and it finds its roots in normalising the far-right rhetoric as well as the colonial history of the United Kingdom. This isn't the first time that racism, anti-migrant hate has arisen to recent history. Those voting to leave the UK were more likely to agree with the statement. Immigrants have threatened their values and way of life, and we saw the rise of hate crime and racist attacks that occupied post-Brexit. The media, beyond the usual tabloids, is to blame for having provided a platform to known figures and inflammatory language, and Angelo had continued. The fact that this is happening is being labelled in the mainstream as riots, or that we hear about legitimate concerns, is part of the problem. The rhetoric against Muslims and people of colour and migrants is extremely toxic, and it is so mainstream because in the years after Brexit, this has been so normalised. People of colour and migrants in this country now live in fear because of similar scenarios have been enabled. Alongside demands for a stronger anti-racist narrative around the violence, migrants also stated that this moment should mark a shift beyond reactive and performative statements, including in the charity sector itself. While rationalised people, including migrants in our network, have been moved by the acts of solidarity by the communities in the form of counter-demonstrators, it is clear that this has not been accomplished by optimism. Let's cast our mind back to the murder of George Floyd and subsequent Black Lives Matter protests. The aftermath was shaped by a rush to be seen to condemn the form of equality, diversity, inclusion, the EDI, statements and social media posts all promising to tackle racism. But here we are again. What has become clear from our community is desire for this energy to be sustained long-term, for meaningful action to be taken beyond this moment. That one centres migrants and tackles the root of anti-migrant racism and Islamophobia. As Javier told us, there are more dark days to come, but I generally hope there can be a power shift once and for all to benefit the migrated community. I hope so too. I really hope so too, but I'm not holding my breath on it, unfortunately. the rich and the powerful are amplifying these people. They're amplifying it, and people are falling for it. Is there are there problems with certain minorities, certain minority communities? Absolutely, there's absolutely that. But the inciting of it by others is also not helping this issue as well. It is. This is a conversation we need to continue to have. Politicians need to have more. Needs to be tackled against misinformation and demeanour, and those responsible need to face the wrath of the law. The longer we have this issue, the more problems it's going to have here. What does the gang behind me think about it? What do you guys think? Yeah, Ollie's not happy about this. He fears for people of different nationalities and people of skin color. Pingu says, "Can we deport the members of the far right to Rwanda?" And I said, "No, we can't do that because we'd be as bad as the people who want to deport migrants as well." Cash Dummy doesn't really care; he just wants cookies. But yeah, the lava lamp, if you can see it, just about there. There you go. A lava lamp has formed. Took a while for it to form, guys, but it is there, guys, as well. So just before we wrap things up, guys, I've got one more story for you guys, and I think it's a very important one. The COVID inquiry is obviously still something that should be still on the minds of people, and we should still try to talk about it whenever we can. And I'm glad that Byline Times has got a report on this. So the UK COVID inquiry branded shameful for excluding the voices of children with long COVID. So long COVID kids and the long COVID Scotland met with more legal tests of having significant interest in matters being investigated, but they were not granted core participant status. Now, there's a part of me that can understand why they weren't given a participation statement. Well, but there's also a part of me is like everyone who is affected, whatever side, whether it's those with long COVID, those with short COVID, those who lost loved ones, whether they're children, adults, whatever, they should all have some part of representation on this matter. And it looks like that those with long COVID, especially kids here, and perhaps those in Scotland, have not had much of a say. Now, this whatever the final outcome, the final reports of this is going to be, it is going to be so important for us to learn from these mistakes. But I just feel like that the Conservatives have learned bugger all, and they're still not sorry for the damage that they caused during their time. The Conservative government that was in charge during it all. And this is the thing that infuriates me the most, is that they're not sorry. They're not sorry about mistakes that they have made. They're not sorry at all. And I just felt that if there was some sympathy, there was legit more sympathy from them, I think people would be a bit more understanding. But they don't show any of it. That's the thing that really upsets me the most. And these children who suffer COVID, who are suffering from COVID as well, so they have a lasting damage for the rest of their lives as well. So a decision to refuse longer COVID kids and LCK, that's long COVID Scotland, core participant status in the UK COVID-19 inquiry module concerning children and young people have been branded shameful. The two charities, who represent approximately 11,000 children and families suffering from long COVID, met the legal test of having significant interest in matters being investigated on July the 9th, and it was through that fault that means would be delegated core participant status. Status allows those affected to make opening and closing statements, suggested lines of questioning, and having the right to reply to the inquiry to ask questions of witnesses. Charities, according to an open letter set on the 14th of July and backed by over 50 charities, organisations, clinicians and ministers and other backers, were shocked and disappointed by the decision. Made by Chair Lady Harriot, she was confident the inquiry can explore the government's understanding of the risks that children might acquire long COVID without there being core participants. They want answers. The decisions which campaigners argue is further evidence of key voices being dismissed. It comes after organisations came together earlier this year to express concerns at the lack of new investment into long COVID. The announcement of landmark legal action in Scotland regarding medical negligence towards a child with long COVID and ongoing complaints regarding graded exercise therapy being suggested for long C patients despite evidence that can worsen symptoms. Jane Ryan, solicitor of the charity, says she's puzzled that at this final and vital stage for children and young people with long COVID, the inquiry has chosen to close the process to them, shut the door and deny them the rights of special core participants have. She branded the decision shameful. Until now, Ryan continued that the inquiry has consistently sought my clients' input, recognising their unique experiences and role. Diane Fisher, a parent of a child with long COVID, said in an open letter that LCK has fought for us since 2020. They understand the struggles experienced by children suffering with long COVID and their families better than any other organisation. They stand out as a beacon of hope, support and information in an otherwise disappointing and distressing quagmire of gaslighting, denial and ignorance from medical, educational and political bodies. They will know the right questions to ask to help the inquiry understand how our children are being so badly let down. The charities have engaged with the inquiry since 2022, including providing witnesses' statements, meeting with the inquiry team, providing support and attending every Story Matters events, sharing the inquiry's work with members and supporters, participating in Impact Films, being members of Children and Young People's Forum, and being core participants in the Scottish COVID Inquiry Module 2 and 3 of the UK COVID Inquiry. Children and young people with long COVID suffered the dual burden of the social and educational disruption, with the loss of learning for all that children suffer, as well as the long-term injury to their health. For many children and young people with long COVID, those impacts persist, resulting in chronic illnesses, sustainable and long-term impairment. The ONS statistics reveal that while prevalence of long COVID in children is lower than adults, a sustainable number are impacted. 111,816 children aged 3 to 17 in England and Scotland were estimated to be affected in March 2024 when the survey was conducted. Among 21,000 children described their long COVID as limiting their abilities to undertake day-to-day activities a lot, while a further 60,744 were limited to little. When the ONS last estimated long COVID prevalence was published in March 2023, though the COVID infection survey CIS, the estimated number of children impacted was 62,000, suggesting an upwards trend in this age group. The lack of interest in the Department of Education has shown so far in long COVID, it means it appears to not in position to inform the inquiry. A Department of Education document, School Attendance Data Collected Impact Assessment, published in January 24, states the effects of COVID-19 and long COVID are as of yet unknown and need to be kept under review, as it is likely to have a long-term impact in the education of children. Current guidance states there is no need to test children, making it impossible for the government to monitor the impact. Lady Harriot's decision comes after 5 organisations representing those with long COVID released an open letter criticising the previous government for its response to pleas for additional funding for research into such illnesses, as statistics showed that 2 million people will experience it, the majority for 2 or more years. The lack of new funding makes the UK an outliner compared to other countries like the US, which recently allocated another $515 million in research funding in what it called urgent healthcare crisis. The UK equivalent would be around £80 million. Meanwhile, in Scotland, authorities are facing increasing criticism from long COVID sufferers, including a landmark legal case challenging the failures of authorities to provide adequate care. Now, will Labour give something towards this in the budget? I don't know is my honest answer, guys. Should they allocate money towards this? My answer is yes, they should. Do they have the money? Yes, they do. There is always money there. It's just a case of where they get that money from. My heart goes out to anyone who is still suffering from long COVID. For children who have suffered this, what they have gone through, and they're still going through, my heart goes out to them. To those who are trying to fight for their cause, I commend them. I really do. Is Lady Harriet right to keep them out of the loop, to not have them ask questions? A part of me says yes, and a part of me says no. So the part of me that says yes is what more could they add to it? While at the same time, a part of me says, well, don't they have a right to ask the questions directly? So that's where I'm kind of in a catch-22 situation there. I do agree that we should be making sure that those with long COVID are getting all the care that we needed, all the care that they need. But it appears that they're not getting enough. They haven't been getting that care under the Conservatives. Surprise, surprise, which I don't think anyone is surprised about. But are Labour going to do something to ensure that they get the care that they need? That is a question. And obviously, I can't speak too much about COVID in Scotland, but obviously, I'm sure the Scottish Government would have been trying to give as much as they possibly can, whenever they can, to it, but perhaps they're not doing enough for it as well. But those from Scotland can comment on that down below. So guys, we've reached the end of Regan's news round. What did you guys think of some of the topics we covered today? We covered a variety of different topics, from Jess Phillips tweeting to some politics around Scotland we've covered today. Labour about the funding for mega jails, those suffering from deadly lung disease, the backlash over thousands of A-level students, the far right riots again, and obviously the long COVID from children and those in Scotland. What did you guys think about all these stories and more? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Leave me your feedback, what you guys thought. It is greatly appreciated. But before you head out, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.